Hi, welcome to the Deering Banjo Company. Today we'd like to talk a little bit about clawhammer banjo playing. Clawhammer banjo playing is the original style of banjo playing, as far as we know. Its name is partially derived from the shape of your hand when you are playing clawhammer. Your hand actually looks a little like a clawhammer, the tool that carpenters use to drive nails and pull nails. But it is also based on the kind of approach that is used. Okay, and what do I mean by that? Well, this banjo is very much like the original banjos from the early 1800s. The back of it is open, and it has a 5 strings, and the clawhammer style is a style that utilizes a synchronized thumb constant plucking of the 5th string. Now, what we're going to do today is we're going to break down this approach. I'm going to take these a little bit out of sequence, and we're going to start with actually the second technique first, and then we're going to go to the other two. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to hold our hand in a posture something like this, okay? Now, with clawhammer, your hand doesn't move very much. Your fingers might move just a little bit, just a little, but you're not going to be doing this, okay? And that's some of the beauty of clawhammer. Now, some people, when they strike the strings, they use their middle finger nail, and some use their index fingernail. Either one is totally fine. I'm going to use my middle finger because that's just how I learned it. And here's the first approach, or here's the first technique that we're going to learn. Okay, the first technique is going to be what I call the brush. And what we're going to do is, if you're using your middle finger or your index finger, and I'm using my middle finger, we're going to brush across the strings. Now, you notice when I did this, I'm hanging my thumb off of that 5th string. This is the secret of clawhammer. Okay, we want to brush across the string, and it's very important that you grab that 5th string, and in this case, you can even exaggerate your grabbing of the 5th string by pulling it down, pulling the string pretty hard. And it's okay, it won't hurt your banjo or your strings. So you want to brush and hold that string. So let's try this together, because what we want to do is get a feel for brushing across the strings and catching that thumb. This catching of the thumb is the most crucial part of clawhammer. That's part of why we're starting it first, so we can get the hard part down. So here's what we're going to do, and let's try to do this together. We'll see if we can coordinate our efforts here. So here we go. Let's try a brush, and remember to catch that string, that 5th string with your thumb. So we're going to brush, and we're going to brush. Now, you probably notice when I do this that my thumb and my fingers sometimes brush against the head, and that's all right. Don't worry about it. You've probably seen clawhammer banjo players that had heads that had dirt, on both sides of the strings. Totally normal, and it's okay. As you practice, you'll probably get more accurate to where you won't hit as often, okay? But for now, we're not going to worry about that. We're just going to do the brush, and if we're brushing and rubbing against the head, that's all right. So we're going to brush down. We're going to catch that 5th string with our thumb. Brush and catch. We're going to brush and catch. Okay, we're going to brush and catch. All right. Now, when you're using this video, one of the best things to do is to go back and take each step, practice each step as much as you can. Then we'll start to combine them all together, which I'm going to do in just a moment. But for now, just remember to brush and catch that thumb on the 5th string. Brush and catch that thumb on the 5th string. Let's do this a few times together again so we can really get this down. Oh, and I almost forgot the single most important thing about learning to play the banjo. When you practice slow, you learn fast. So we're going to practice really slow so we learn really fast. Here we go. that beautiful? Okay, now we did the brush. What we're going to do now is the third step of the clawhammer. We did the brush, and we're hanging off of the fifth string. What we're going to do, you probably noticed if you're watching this earlier, that when I pulled my hand away, the thumb almost automatically makes that fifth string sound, or makes a sound with the fifth string, like that. What we're going to do is we're going to just emphasize that a little bit. We're going to just pull our thumb a little bit to make a little more volume. And if you get one of these, that's okay. That's perfectly okay. Sometimes that happens when you're learning. You'll play a brush and you'll hit a fifth string. You'll hear some famous players do that deliberately. So if you do it, you're way ahead of the game. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the brush, and as we come back, we're going to bring our hand together. We're going to bring, because you notice when I did the brush here, my hands spread apart just a little bit, and that's normal. We're going to bring our fingers back toward our thumb, and we're using our thumb only. We're going to pluck the string. Now, you can lift up the string a little bit to pluck it, or you can come straight back to pluck it. Kind of depends on your comfort level and how your thumb is shaped and how your thumb works. So what we're going to do is do a brush and a pluck. A brush and a pluck. And a brush and a pluck. It's simple, isn't it? It may not be simple to do at the moment because your muscles aren't used to it, but the technique is actually extremely simple, and it's beautiful when you get the hang of that brush and pluck. So let's do this a few times. We'll do it very slowly because when you practice slow, you learn fast. So we're going to brush and pluck. We're going to do these together. And as you're doing the tape, come back to it if you need to, and just do it as over and over and over as much as you can. So here we go. Pluck, brush, pluck, brush, pluck, brush, pluck, brush, pluck, brush. Okay, now we've done the brush and we've done the pluck. Now we're going to add the third and final ingredient of clawhammer. This one is just a little different than the others. We're going to use whichever nail you've been using. If you've been using your middle fingernail, that's fine. If you've been using your index fingernail, that's fine. What we're going to do, we're going to aim for the third string here. The third. Oh, and forgive me if I haven't explained this. The strings are string number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. What we're going to do is aim at the third string, and we're going to use a kind of a slight knocking motion, and our fingers might open up just a little. Not like this, not like this. They might open just a little bit, and that's okay. But we're going to have just a little bit of a knocking motion with a little bit of opening up of the fingers, just slightly. We're going to aim at the third string, and we're going to go, I call that the hit. So you're going to go, see, I missed, and I hit mostly the second string, and that's okay at the beginning. Don't worry about that. We're going to hit the third string with our nail, and it doesn't matter if it's the index or the middle. See, I hit the fourth string more that time. There's the third string. There's the third string. And that's called the hit. Well, that's what we call it. And it works for us. So that is a strike against the third string. Okay, and let's do this together a few times. Now, I want to stress that you don't need to every single time actually hit the third string. It's important that you aim at the third string, Because gradually, as you practice and as you get better, your third string accuracy will improve, but you don't need to worry too much about it right now. So if you end up, hitting the third, hitting the second, hitting the fourth and the fifth, don't sweat it too much, because that accuracy will come as long as you aim for the third string. And the reason we aim for the third string right now is not important. I'll talk a little bit about that later. So let's try just doing a few of the hits. So it goes third string hit with our whichever nail we're using, hit, and hit, and hit, and hit, and hit, and hit, and hit. Okay, now what we've done here today is we've done the brush, we've done the pluck, and we've done the hit. Now at the very beginning, I said we were doing these out of sequence, and we did. I wanted you to get the hang of the brush first, because the brush with your thumb hanging off of the fifth string is really the secret of clawhammer. Once you get the hang of that, everything else falls into place. The actual sequence goes hit and brush and pluck. All right? You've probably also noticed I've been doing this extremely slowly. It's very, very important. When you practice slow, you learn fast. But it's important because when you practice slow, you are more aware of your hand, your fingers, and you tend to be more relaxed. So what we want to do is go at a very, very slow pace, because as you go slow, you'll automatically speed up. Believe me, you'll automatically speed up. You'll have to force yourself to keep yourself from going too fast. But basically, let's try putting it all together. We're going to do this very, very slow. I'll try to call out what we do. Now, if you're at this point and you get a little overwhelmed by it, just go back to the previous sections and take each section. If you have trouble with the hit, just spend some time doing the hits. Trouble with the brush, trouble with the pluck, go back and take your time. This is the fun part, putting it all together. So here we go. Let's try doing the hit and the brush and the pluck. And the hit, the brush and the pluck. The hit, the brush and the pluck. The hit, brush, and pluck, the hit, the brush, and the pluck, the hit, the brush, and the pluck, the hit, the brush, and the pluck. Okay. Here's what we're going to do. I want you to go back and do this for a good long time, maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, who knows. Go until you can do this very comfortably at this very slow pace, because in just a second, we're going to show you what happens when we increase the speed and we change the space between each of these notes or techniques just a little bit. But if you're just starting on this, try not to jump into this. You can watch it, but try not to jump into this immediately, because this could be a little overwhelming. We're not in this to be overwhelming. We're in this to learn how to play. So here we go. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to start playing the Clawhammer Approach, but we're going to start very slow, and we're going to pick up the speed just a little bit at a time to where we get it up to a speed where it starts to sound like the clawhammer playing that we all love. All right, we're not going to play real fast, but we're going to play just up to a certain speed so we can kind of get a feel for what it sounds like. All right, so I'll try calling this out at first, and I may back off of saying anything during the process so you can practice this at your home. Okay, so here we go. Let's do the hit and the brush and the pluck. Hit, brush, pluck, pluck, hit, Okay, what just happened there? We played at our very slow pace. When we got to a certain speed, I changed the relationship of the space between the notes. Instead of an even space between every note, which is the way you should practice, by the way, with an even space between each of the notes or between each of the techniques. So you have the hit, the brush, and the pluck. When you're practicing, it's important to keep an even space between them. But as you start getting into more music, then you change the space in between for the musical expression that you're trying to create. Most people hear the clawhammer as it's bum diddy 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 bum. Now, if you're watching this for the first time, please don't try to do that immediately. It takes a little bit of time to be able to hit, brush, and pluck, and to do it accurately and smoothly. We always look for smoothness, you know, in the players that we admire. So, and that smoothness comes from lots of repetition, just sitting at home, doing your hit, brush, and pluck. So practice that. And as you build up your speed, you'll find that you're able to change the space between the notes as you please. And we're going to go on to something a little bit in just a minute, but let's just do a little bit more of this. We'll start off slow and we'll bring it up a little faster. We'll change the timing a little bit and we'll come back down. If you have any problems doing this, go back to the beginning and just do the slow hit, brush, and pluck. It's okay to spend weeks and months just doing that on your own. It's totally okay. Then pick up the speed as your comfort level increases. So let's try that just a little bit. Okay, we did a little bit of up to speed playing. We started off doing our hit, aiming at the third string. Here's why that's important to work on your accuracy. You can create an alternating bass pattern by alternating between starting one clawhammer cycle, hitting the third string, and start the next one hitting the fourth string, like this. Okay, and all we're doing is we're aiming first at the third string. We're doing our hit, brush, and pluck. Then we aim at the fourth string. Hit, brush, and pluck. Back to the third string. Hit, brush, and pluck. And the fourth string. Hit, brush, and pluck. That's why always aiming for slow and accurate will get you to this point where you can play. And that's why we want to always strive for accuracy, but this gives you a nice accompaniment little technique that you can play lots and lots and lots of songs with. So aim at the third, brush, pluck, and aim at the fourth, brush and pluck. Okay, we've been focusing on the right hand, or I should say the plucking hand, because if you're left-handed, you're doing all this with your left hand. Now what we want to do is take a look at learning just a couple of chords. One of the wonderful things in folk music and a lot of bluegrass music and even a lot of popular, pop music, you can play an amazing number of songs with 3 chords. Without getting into music theory or anything like that, I just want to show you 2 chords. Now, your banjo is tuned to an open G chord. You don't really have to know what that means. It's not that important. But just know that when you strum your banjo and you're doing your clawhammer, you automatically are playing a chord. But you want to be able to play songs which usually require 2 additional chords. Fortunately on the banjo, these are very, very easy to play. That was a G chord we just played. Now I'm going to show you a D 7th chord, and it only takes 2 fingers. This is really, really cool. Now, for your left hand, some players do this differently. I tend to use the homemade hillbilly approach of resting the neck of the banjo, that's this, in between my thumb and index finger, like this, kind of like wedging. I'm used to it. I do it out of habit. It's not necessarily the best way. Really, probably the best way to learn to play is to put your thumb somewhere on the back of the neck, whether it's the middle or a little to one side of the middle, either in the center or something like that, so that it gives you the maximum reach. I'd learned this way, that's just kind of the way it goes. But anyway, so what we're going to do today is show you first the D 7th chord. We're going to take our index finger and we're going to push the 2nd string down on the 1st fret. Now, as you know, these metal pieces here are the frets, and the strings, as we discussed earlier, are 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we're going to push down our index finger on the 2nd string, 1st fret. Then we're going to use our middle finger and we're going to push it down on the 3rd string at the 2nd fret. Now I'm just going to strum this so you can hear what it sounds like. Okay? So that is a D 7th chord. Now let's try a little bit of our clawhammer alternating, starting on the 3rd string and 4th string with the clawhammer. So we're going to start on the 3rd string with the hit, brush, pluck, 4th, brush, pluck. Okay, that's a D7 chord. The chord by itself doesn't sound like a lot, but in the context of a song, it's perfect. So that's a D7. Now we want to practice that chord along with our G chord. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take some time. You can turn off the video. We're going to take some time and we're going to practice holding that chord down and playing our clawhammer with it. I'm going to assume for a moment you've already done that. And so here's what we're going to do. We're going to play a combination of the G chord and try to go to the D7 chord. We're going to go very slow so we have all the time in the world to get there. So here we go. Let's start off on our G chord. Hit, brush, pluck, hit, brush, pluck, and hit, brush, pluck, and hit, brush, pluck. Now we're going to play the D7 chord. We're going to put our fingers in place. Our index finger at the second string, first fret, and our middle finger on the third string, second fret. Hit, brush, pluck, hit, brush, pluck, hit, brush, pluck. Now, we're going to raise our fingers up off the fingerboard to play the G again. Here's what it sounds like. Isn't it wonderful how that D seventh chord sort of makes the G sound even more beautiful when you come off of it? Okay, now we can play a G, we can play a D7. Now we're going to learn a C chord. Now the C chord is basically 3 fingers of your left hand, and what you do is take your ring finger, and there are other ways to finger these chords. So like for example, if you have damage to one of your fingers, or if you've broken a finger and you can only use the other 3, you can re-finger these and it'll work just fine. I've worked with many students that have had, you know, fingers that were shorter, or they had lost tips of fingers, stuff like that. Don't worry about that. You can readjust it. But this is what most people will feel comfortable with, and so I'm kind of going from that point. So here we go. Let's take our ring finger and push down the first string behind the second fret. Then, just like the D7th chord, we're going to push our index finger on the second string at the first fret. Then we're going to reach our middle finger over here and push down the 4th string. Ha! Kind of a long reach, huh? But it's not that bad. It may seem very difficult at first, but you'll get it. And I'll talk in a few minutes about making chords with your left hand. But let's go ahead and do this. We're going to hold down the first string with the ring finger at the 2nd fret, the second string with the index finger at the 1st fret, and the middle finger on the 4th string at the 2nd fret. All right? Now let's do our claw hammer, and let's do our hit, brush, and pluck, alternating between the 3rd and the 4th strings. So here we go. Now, we're going to go from the C chord back to the G chord by just raising our fingers off the strings. Again, you see how that chord brought us back home to the G chord. It's a very rewarding, very beautiful sound. Okay, now we talked about how to finger the chords, but I didn't go into too much detail. Here's a couple of very important tips that'll make your chords sound clean and clear. You want to have chords that when you pluck the strings, the notes all ring clearly. Okay? If you hold the strings too loosely, it just means that the strings are not being pushed down far enough. All you're doing when you fret, you're pushing the string behind, and this is a thing about being a banjo player. Well, guitar players deal with this too. But anyway, you're pushing behind the fret, This direction is behind. It's, believe it or not, this is also down. That's why musicians have a hard time in life, because this is down and this is up. What are you going to do? Okay, so what we're going to do is we want to push down behind the fret, not on the fret. If you push down the string on the fret, your finger actually muffles the string. But if you push the string down behind the fret, you're stretching the string over the fret. And the metal fret does its job of making a nice, clear, crystal clear sound. So you always want to strive to hold the strings down behind the frets, just behind the fret, and not on top of the fret. Now, I showed you what happened when you hold them down too loosely. If you push the strings down too aggressively, too hard, it is possible to push your banjo out of tune. And what this is you're basically pushing the string down so far that you're stretching it. And when you stretch the string, you raise the pitch, which can throw you out of tune. Our banjos, for example, have pretty tall frets. Now the advantage of that is that it takes very little effort to hold the strings down, because the fret essentially is rising up to meet you. On a lot of the real old banjos from the turn of the century, they had super skinny, tiny little frets. And the problem was you'd end up pushing the string down all the way to the wood, all the way to the fingerboard wood. Well, we tend to push close to the wood, if not to the wood, but we don't have to push it that far anymore because we're using taller frets. So just push the frets down, the strings down behind the frets, and it'll give you a good, clear, bell-like sound. Okay, now we know how to fret. We know 3 chords. We can now conquer the musical world. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to play a chord progression. We're going to do this very slowly. This is not really a song. It could be a song. It could be parts of a song. You may say, oh, that sounds like whatever song. That's fine. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to play, I'm going to call out the chords, and we're going to play the song with our clawhammer. We're going to start off with G. We're going to play our slow clawhammer. Now, we're going to change the chord to a D7. Okay, now we're going to change the chord back to G. Now we're going to change the chord to a C. Now we're going to change the chord back to G. Now. Well, that's pretty much it for our clawhammer study for the day. What I'd like to do is encourage you to go to deeringbanjos.com and look up any other clawhammer educational materials. And of course, you are always welcome to email us and call us with any questions about your banjo, questions about how to play. We'll always help you in every way possible. And I think maybe the best way to say goodbye today is maybe with a little bit of music. So enjoy your clawhammer playing, and remember, when you practice slow, you learn fast.